Alright, sup fellow citizens, welcome back to the Path of Rage. I am Rage at Games, and this is our Star Citizen News Roundup. We got a lot to go over with an update on the 3.24 patch, a new vehicle that they just surprise dropped on us that everyone can test out in the PTU, a new addition to the roadmap for 4.0, the Squadron 42 monthly report for August, a little bit more on creatures in the universe from inside Star Citizen, and quite a bit of detail on server meshing and what goes on in the actual programming side of it from Benoit Beausejour on Star Citizen Live. Again, like I said, this is going to be a bigger one, so grab a drink, grab a bag of Cheetos or something, settle in, and let's get into it. First up is the new 3.24 patch that is currently on the PTU. CIG has been completely progressing this patch, dropping hot fixes. It's also on live, of course, but the new PTU patch has had some more fixes added in. It is coming along nicely. Still some workarounds and bug fixes that need happening, but one of the things that happened was they dropped this nice new robotic Titan suit loader for us, the Argo Atlas. This thing is badass, actually. You can see from the footage in the background here, this is me screwing around with it the other night in the PTU. It works much differently than the handheld tools, and I love it, because the way you had to do it before was you locked onto a target with your handheld tools and you had to constantly scroll the mouse wheel back and forth to actually move the item to and from the player. It ended up giving you carpal tunnel just trying to do a cargo hauling mission. Now, with this Titan suit, it actually, you just click on it and it pulls the cargo, whatever size it is, right to you. And this will work, by the way, on larger cargo sizes than the handhelds will. Once it comes to you, it then shows you an icon on the ground that you move around to decide where you want to place it. You click the button again and it automatically deposits the cargo right where you wanted it. This smooths out the cargo managing portion of the hauling missions so much better, such a huge quality of life. Anyone who does a cargo hauling gameplay, especially if you have a big enough ship to use it, this will be a must. Now, we don't know how much it's going to be in game. We don't know how much it's going to be sold for on the store. Again, I always say don't buy anything on the store unless you really want to support them. Wait a few months, it will be in the PTU, and we'll be able to buy it with in-game currency. But again, this thing will be an absolute must for cargo haulers. I'm putting that out there right now. I think it is too useful for it not to be a staple of cargo hauling players. Now, as you can see here from the screen I've got up, this is a bunch of the bug fixes that have been coming on. Currently, this is the patch that is working as of the recording of this video. Right now, there is supposedly, this is Monday, there is supposedly a patch plan for later today. So we'll see what that goes. You can see the fixes that have come in, a little bit about the features and gameplays, but look at the top here. Vehicle terminal scroll bar will now stay in position when swapping screens to deliver and claim. This is such a nice quality of life change, especially if you have many ships. Now, I don't. I only have the Drake Cutlass Black. But there are times when you get free flies or whatnot that you can just go and rent all the ships for free, and you'll have like 2 or 3 screens worth of ships in there. The way it was working before this patch was you go in, you click the deliver button to have it delivered to that location for the first time, and then you'd have to scroll all the way back down to it again to find it to actually transfer it to the hangar. Now when you go back, it'll still be where you left it before. It's a minor thing, but again, anything that reduces needless scrolling I think it's a good thing in my book. Moving on to the roadmap edition is the Zeus Mark II ES and CL. These have both been targeted now instead of, pardon me, a 4.0 release, as I was saying, it has been targeted for a 3.24 point release. So we should see this before 4.0 in the end of the year. This is going to be a small multi-crew ship that I actually really like the looks of. I can't wait to take a look at it in game. It might be one of those things that becomes a daily driver for smaller solo players like me. Again, I just have a Cutlass, and that is considered a 3-man vehicle right now. So, from what I understand, the Zeus is supposed to be the same, 3-man targeted. So we'll have to see. It looks like an interesting vehicle, and it's now targeted for 3.24 patch release cycle. Now, Inside Star Citizen was less interesting to me this time around. It focused on the fauna being added to the world, most notably the space cows. How there will be 5 different versions of them, some more hairy, some not, some with more scaly skin, depending on their environment. They've said that there will be some form of harvesting with their eggs and the tongue of one, apparently. This is not something that really floats my boat. I am looking forward to animals being in the game, but it's not really much for me to tell you about them other than they're coming, and there's going to be 5 different kinds. The second half of Inside Star Citizen was all about the new additions to the character customizer, which will have stubble, tattoos, and piercings. Again, that's great, and if you're really into the character customization portion of Star Citizen or in games in general, I again highly suggest you go and watch this Inside Star Citizen. I personally couldn't care less about the customization of my character. If we all looked the same, we all looked the same. It's the gameplay systems and being in space and all that that matters to me. So not much for me to report on here. Moving on now to the more meaty parts of today's episode. First, we're going to get into the Squadron 42 monthly report for August. Beginning with the AI features team, which focused on polishing functionality to improve the level flow. So during buddy sections where players are aided by characters, they've changed things up so that, for example, AI characters will no longer automatically crouch and draw a weapon when enemies are nearby. If that's not what the scene calls for, this is a behavior that's controlled now by a designer who can just determine where the best place in the moment is for that to occur. They're also improving tech to control how the buddy joins in combat to provide situational awareness to the player. The AI tech team worked on small improvements and bug fixes, of course, but also editor functionality for the designers to tag and assign action areas directly to NPCs, and worked on subsumption tasks to enable or disable navigation costs in areas and modify those costs. The AI social strike team spent most of August refining idle animations for desk workers. So this will significantly reduce the noticeable repetition when multiple characters are positioned next to each other at seated areas and consoles. They also expanded the advanced animation set used for repairing and inspecting the Gladius Hornet, which we've seen on the flight deck animations many times. And there are more advanced animations and realistic animations that move away from the basic motions that were already there, so it just adds a bit more depth and believability. They also made a bunch of progress on refining the various interactions through the game. This is to clearly delineate when something is interactable and it serves a meaningful gameplay purpose. And this step is crucial to maintaining intuitive game mechanics that enhances our player experience overall. They also improved the AI of the cargo handling AI. So it used to be that one AI character could perform the action of moving cargo from a pickup location to a drop-off at a time, which resulted in illogical sequences of events and weird cues, when now multiple AI characters not using trolleys can move cargo from the same pickup location to the same drop-off area. With this new update, cargo movement now appears more realistic and dynamic, which, adds that air and layer of authenticity to the environment. Again, if they're all standing there waiting to pick up one box and move it to the nearby C2 ship, that would just look ridiculous and take forever. So this makes a lot more sense. They also followed up an art pass on cargo in the Shubin location, and this update ensures that the vehicle's movements align perfectly with the new cargo layout. And finally, for social AI, they made a numerous smaller bug fixes and improvements across the campaign. And finally, for AI, the game intelligence development team concentrated on delivering a clean and stable, you're going to quote me on this one, Apollo Starscript UX update. This involved support for higher icon resolution so they stay sharp when zoomed in, and straightening lines for making it a clearer read. Drag and drop was improved. They corrected the color and size of imported notes, added arrowheads to links leading to closed groups, and other things like that. Moving on to animation, the gameplay animation team worked on zero-G movement on surfaces, weapon first selects and overheats, improved pickups, scene-specific player interactions, and numerous background animations for life around a key location. They also made a number of human enemy type changes in progress, mostly on the mocap side, supporting gameplay and story needs that involved reshoots and a little bit more data solving. And they also supported the motion cap team so that they can be even more efficient on future shoots. Also, they then joined forces to retarget faster traction on some of the upcoming asset sets, and they're working on final facial animation solves for Squadron 42 before pivoting to fleshing out background AI and improving high-profile story scenes. Now, the graphics and programming team, alongside the stability and the performance improvements for Vulcan, which have been noticeable, the graphics team have improved the debugging tools for the rest of the development team. The global illumination was added for high gloss specular reflections. They also added live updates to GPU ray tracing acceleration and began working on improvements to transparent objects. Performance-wise, global illumination now supports temporal and spatial subsampling, resulting in fewer rays fired per frame with the same visual look. Ongoing tasks consist of asynchronous creation and destructible render objects to reduce frame time spikes on the CPU. And the main fire hazard system has been wrapped, with the team moving to bug fixing and design balancing. They're also nearly finished with data conversion for better particle effect management, and performance enhancements are still in progress and likely will be as long as the game is still in development, even after it's released. If one thing never changes in game development, we all know this, is that performance can always be worked on. Moving on to the narrative team, they continued working with core gameplay to refine the number of Galactopedia entries and identify where they're going to unlock for the player. The aim for the next few months is to lock down the first half of the game from an entry point of view, to test the experience and make sure that we receive an enjoyable number of entries. I try not to overwhelm us, but also not leave us wondering what's going on or not getting any backstory. It makes sense. They want to have it come out to us in a decent measured pace. They also moved back to live production with some pickup shooting, re-recording a handful of lines for a supporting character, and work continued on in-fiction collectibles that the team is developing with outsourced artists, and they continue to regularly play through the levels to review the implementation of the latest content and make sure everything is triggering correctly and the overall flow of the game is proceeding the way it's meant to. And finally, with VFX, they focused on polishing a section of key scenes alongside the cinematics team, and they continued to support the design and art teams with ongoing level work. So a lot going on there with Squadron 42. I actually like reading of the progress on Squadron 42. It is the reason that I backed Star Citizen in the first place. This was originally only supposed to be a single player flight combat game, and it's evolved to so much more that it's making me happy that it is. But I truly am looking forward to Squadron 42. I just wish we could see more of it, you know. like we hear that all of the work is going into Squadron 42, majority of the work, I should say, and it trickles down to the PU, and we can see a lot is going on in the PU, but it just makes me wonder, when you look at the persistent universe, even with all it has to offer and the coolness of it and the just the overall feel of it, it's still fairly buggy, it's still low frame rates or whatnot, and you can't help but correlate that with how Squadron 42 in your mind must be, and the fact that they're not showing it off. I'm really hoping at CitizenCon this year that we see something on Squadron 42. I would even love to see the same vertical slice that we got, I don't know if it was back in 2018 or 2016, I'm not sure, but we got a vertical slice of it. That show that to me again, just where it is now. That's all I need. I want to see, I want to actually see the progress on Squadron 42. And, you know, I just hope that they do that. That's one of my biggest gripes with this project. But anyway, moving on. All right, moving on to Star Citizen Live. This time, Jared sat down, or zoomed, I guess, with Benoit Beauséjour, formerly of, or still of Turbulent, but now is the Chief Technology Officer of all of CIG, overseeing all of the project, basically. Regarding patch 3.24, Ben said that it was an interesting patch, quote unquote, that released a ton of new features and updates to a bunch of long-standing features, and this of course caused issues as more players joined in, and even caused entirely new issues that they had to account for. These were the hangar and elevator bugs, among others, that I mentioned in prior videos, and this has resulted in the course of hot fixes that we're seeing on the servers right now, but it also resulted in new metrics being added behind the scenes to give them far more data in order to find and fix these issues. Not that they didn't have them before, but now they have further ones to just speed up the whole process. Benoit discovered how the hangars are instanced to players and basically stacked one on top of each other, only being moved into place when ATC is contacted for an actual liftoff. He said this is why players can hear ghost sounds sometimes of other people's hangars, and is a bug that they are currently fixing. He also said that this instancing tech is something that they can use in other situations throughout the game, although he didn't exactly elaborate on that. Now, regarding server meshing, Benoit said the tests the Evocati did in this earlier spring showed off areas that were degrading the performance of both what he called the hybrid, aka the replication layer, and the game server communications. This caused issues where the systems would get a ton of data in a short amount of time, such as in large areas, or large areas where people would stream in and out all at the same time, and this would send the networking into a tailspin, causing interaction delays like hitting F to enter a seat, only for it to take several seconds to happen. The difference was these delays would be server-wide, not just like individuals, which can happen still just based on your own internet connection, but this would be server-wide, affecting everybody. They're currently working on a solution to this and are currently testing it in the background in the current 3.2.4 live build, which has half of the servers running the new code, so CIG can compare the systems side by side. These fixes seem to be going well, and Benoit said that the coming tests will be used with these fixes and optimizations to see how the replication layer handles them. And he did say that the one really nice thing is that the server meshing tech itself is actually working quite well, and these improvements to adjacent systems will only help. When asked about when all the servers will be running with the newer updates, Benoit said that while they're going to be prudent in how they roll new tech out, all these servers should be running the newer stuff within the next couple of months, so no real long delay there. When asked about desync in Star Citizen, Benoit said it wasn't only network problems. or client connection problems and the like that causes it, but desync can be caused by completely unrelated things, such as cargo for cargo hauling missions not being destroyed when players abandon the mission or just logged out, leading to hundreds of thousands of boxes being created by the server and using up resources. This would cause the server to have too much load, leading to desync, and it's unrelated or less obvious bugs like this that are the greatest culprits in slowing down fixes. They have to be found first. Benoit also addressed the topic of people asking why CIG would put out a patch that seems to require so much fixing still, and said that while they could hold off and just keep developing in the background, there comes a point where it has to go out to a wider test group like the large live servers, simply because that is where these bigger bugs will finally rear their heads simply through larger player numbers. He also said this was advantageous as well, as it allows the devs to really clean up these systems and get them more functional before adding anything new to the engine. When Jared asked him about server performance and how that can be improved going forward, at this point Benoit went on for just over 10 minutes about server meshing, network optimization, data streaming, the actual cost of running servers, and particularly content optimization. The example that he gave for this was the original 1 SCU cargo box was originally attached to 11 separate entities, which was very much over the limit and the budget for server performance reasons. While server meshing will be the biggest help to server performance, all of these areas come into play in order to provide a smooth experience for the player. The rest of the episode was Jared asking Benoit about the merger between Turbulent and CIG, how he feels in his new role, going from, handling 150 people roughly to nearly 2,000 over multiple continents, and, the ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. This was actually a really interesting Star Citizen Live. I've summed up, as long as this section has been, I've summed up what they've talked to the most salient points, but if you want to hear it more in depth, I would suggest, as always, checking it out in the descriptions below. Inside Star Citizen will also be in the description below. And with that, we have come to the end of this week's news roundup for Star Citizen. I hope I did a good job and that you enjoyed this, folks. If I did, give me a thumbs up. If not, a thumbs down. As always, sound off in the comments below about this project, what you think, especially what you think about what Benoit had to say about the overall state of 3.24 and how it's been going to this point. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and help me out and to grow it. I do appreciate it. It helps with the algorithm. And until next time, I've been Rage at Games, and I will see you guys in the verse.